What up, everybody? It's the Rottweiler Patriots. I'm Vegas,
And I'm Tebow.
and we're coming at you with another video today where we're going to discuss all of the new rule changes approved by the NFL headed into the 2024 season. It was a video we wanted to get done last week, but unfortunately I had an essay that took precedent and we just never got a chance to record. So we're going to get two videos this week. This is going to be the first one, and we're going to have another one released later on today. With that being said, let's hop right into it. The first rule we're going to talk about, the first few rules are going to be mostly roster related, not really affecting the actual game itself. And this is that unlimited designated to return players have been approved. So the NFL's approved a change to playoff rosters where teams now have an unlimited number of designated to return transactions in the postseason. And designated to return basically is kind of an IR related thing. I don't know a ton about it. I looked at it a little bit, but the wording was really, really confusing, as is the case with these really weird NFL general managing stuff. T-Bone, you got anything to say on this one?
No, not much. Kind of just what you said, really just kind of general managery stuff. I don't really have many. I'm not super passionate about this one. This one I don't have my pitchfork.
No.
For, but no.
So, some of these, there's just not a lot to talk about. That's just going to be the case. I mean, there are a couple we'll dwell on. I think some of y'all know what those are. They're wildly unpopular. Alrighty, the next rule that we're going to discuss is declaring players who did not travel. The league has approved a resolution to make the injury reporting rules for players who do not travel with their clubs to games from their home city competitively fair. This is just affects how injury reporting occurs, because of course there are certain rules when it comes to reporting injuries, and this is just having effect for away games and whatnot. So this is just to make things a little more fair in that respect. I think it's, a good change, and, not a lot of details. Again, this is one of those really weird, funky NFL injury roster dealios that, doesn't affect the actual gameplay itself, and most people don't know about or care about anyway. T-Bone, any thoughts on this one?
No, not much. I mean, like you said, it just sort of makes things a little bit more of an even playing field. I mean, I'm sure that there might be something at some point that causes this rule, new rule change to have some type of effect, but I mean, nothing in game. So.
Alrighty, the next rule change for the NFL this year is emergency quarterbacks. Last season, emergency quarterbacks had to be on the 53-man roster. The NFL has amended that by including it to practice squad quarterback. So practice squad quarterback can now act as an emergency quarterback for a game, which opens up an additional roster spot, which in the NFL, every roster spot matters. That is going to be huge. This is a big rule change, and I do like this rule change because at the end of the day, this is only going to occur in really freak cases where two quarterbacks on the same team get hurt in the same game. Like what almost happened with New England when Tom Brady 2016 was wrongfully suspended for a controversy that did not happen. It did not affect a game that was, I think, a 42-point blowout. But I digress. The point here is that Garoppolo went in, then Garoppolo got hurt, and Brissett had to go in. And if Brissett had gotten hurt, which he kind of did, but not enough to knock him out of the game, Julian Edelman, wide receiver, would have had to come in and play quarterback for New England, whereas they could have had a practice squad player dress and act as an emergency quarterback instead of throwing one of our wide receivers in. So that's kind of what this is. I like this rule a lot. T-Bone, any thoughts?
I like it a lot too. It really kind of just, I said it before, sort of an even playing field. Kind of gives teams an even playing field if some type of freak accident happens. This is sort of a way to sort of mitigate some damage and sort of play damage control, which, obviously games like this don't happen a lot. But if it does, there's something to mitigate that now. And I see nothing wrong with it. I, in fact, support this completely.
Yeah. Again, roster spots are huge, and especially with the amount of injuries we saw in the NFL this past year, roster spots are especially a big deal. Alrighty, let's move on to something a little bit juicier. The next rule is that the trade deadline has been pushed back a week. Went from week 8 to week 9. This is supposedly to match, of course, a few years ago the NFL schedule being knocked back a week. So now trade deadline is week 9, an extra week for things to happen, and I am a fan of this rule. I do like that it's, a little closer to the playoffs. That's just where I'm at. T-Bone, what are your thoughts?
I miss it when there was less time to get trades out. I don't know why. I think you just like it.
He's having Christian McCaffrey PTSD, for the record.
I'm really not. I'm more having. Back in the day, I played old Madden, and so I'd have to get any trades I wanted, done. But I like it and I don't like it. I miss the old days, but so does everyone. With sort of a later in the season type beat like this, it does help though, because let's say you got your eyes on some type of you want to do a blockbuster trade mid-season, and you got your eyes on someone, and then boom, week 8 he's injured. Well, you don't really want to trade for him anymore. So, I in that case I like it. I think overall it's going to be helpful for the squads in the NFL.
Yeah. Again, I like it closer to the playoffs, and the big reason, why is, injuries. A player on your team might get hurt, and you might be going for an all-in push, but you need to trade for a guy. Having that extra week, I think, is a good thing for the NFL. Alrighty, the next we're going to talk about is the Hawkeye feed. So, last year in the 2023 preseason, a specific Hawkeye view was provided to the coach's booth for teams, and this was a trial conducted in the 2023 preseason, and they're going to expand the trial to this preseason. So this 2024 preseason, the coaches in the coaching booth will have access to this feed, and then the plan is to fully implement it for the full 2025 NFL season. So basically, coaches in the coaching booths are going to get specific camera angles and basically more camera angles to work with, which I personally am a big fan, especially, for situations where a coach just can only see down on the field, and sometimes the coaching booth is in a weird or awkward spot. Or maybe it's a weather game and they literally can't see down onto the field to help their team, There are situations where this is really helpful, and I think, the ability for coaches to see the field better allows them to coach better, which makes the game of football better at the end of the day. So I'm a fan of this rule. T-Bone, your thoughts?
Completely agree. If there's angles to see and, ways to improve a team, why not? This is fair for everyone. Everyone gets this. Why not? I don't see a problem with this. You get, it's kind of like, coordinators being, higher up in, the stadium. I'm perfectly fine with this. This is a very good new, I don't want to say progressive, but new sort of change, and I like it. It's good. I think this is going to be very helpful for everyone.
Yeah, and the other thing too that this allows is it allows them to see what players see a little bit better. They're not coming in from that side angle. They might have a better chance of seeing, hey, what does the quarterback see here? What does this guy see here? What does that guy see here? So that's another really huge angle when trying to understand why players made the decisions they made. And it also, of course, helps them see, oh, this is what's actually happening versus what did he see? Okay, this is how you view the field differently. This is how to coach a guy to help him adjust. So I like this. I think this kind of stuff can really help improve the quality of football. Alrighty, the next rule, and this is one I am a big fan of, is the third challenge rule. The new rule makes it so that if one out of your 2 challenges are correct, you are automatically awarded a third challenge. So you could miss your first challenge, get your second one, and you would be allowed a third challenge. Before, you had to get both challenges correct in order to be awarded a third challenge. Now you only need one. Massive, massive fan of this rule. I think it's an improvement. It's not exactly how I would do this rule, but that's a subject for a later video. But regardless, I think this is a huge, huge improvement on the system, and I am a fan. T-Bone, your thoughts?
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, obviously, you've got to account for refs doing refy things, but truly, this is good. This is good. That means because you miss one, or you get your first one. Maybe you're worried about, oh, if I challenge this next one that fails, I won't have a third challenge, and you're just juggling stuff, and that's not good. So this helps to where everyone gets three. Everyone gets three. It just I mean, everyone gets three if one's successful. It just I really like challenging. If something's fishy, challenge it. You have your right as that. So more challenges, the better. I think that's going to be better for the game of football.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, if we're talking about football and getting calls right, the end goal is that the challenge rule doesn't need to exist, and you're going to be able to make the right call on every play in a timely manner. Now, obviously, there's difficulties with that. There's limitations with that. There's technology to be able to do stuff. You see the UFL right now is using their ball tracking technology to try to figure out where the ball was marked down, so they can determine, oh, did they get a first down or not? Did they get a touchdown or not? What's the story with that? And that, I don't want the NFL to implement that yet. Long term, yes, but I think definitely using the UFL as a testing ground for that kind of stuff is a good thing, because that technology does still have problems. If, ball tracking were an exact science and could be easily done, it would have been implemented already. But at the end of the day, it's a very fast-paced game. Things are bang, bang. Refs are going to screw up. It's going to happen. Whether through sheer negligence, just unfortunate circumstances, or the NFL asking them to call the games in a certain way because it might generate them more revenue. See the playoffs this past year. Taylor Swift or everything. Anyways, so I think this is a really, really good rule. Alrighty, the next rule we're going to talk about is new reviewable plays. The league has basically expanded what they can use replay on. So now they can use replay to determine if a quarterback was down or out of bounds. This is like in a situation where the quarterback is throwing the football and either their knee hits the ground or they stepped out of bounds before the ball is released from their hands. Instead of having to make this judgment call on the field, they can now review this type of play and make the correct determination. The other thing they can review, and this one I think is going to be really, really interesting, is they can now review whether or not the play clock expired before the snap. Now, this one I think is going to be interesting because of the way it's enforced. The way the rule is currently enforced, or is meant to be enforced, is the referee is watching the play clock. If the play clock hits 0, and then the referee looks back at the quarterback, and the ball has not been snapped yet, he is going to throw a penalty for a delay of game. So you actually end up getting around a 1-second buffer between when the play clock hits 0 and when they're actually going to call delay of game. And I don't have a huge problem with that. Asking the human eye to be that precise is a bit much. But the amount of times where a play clock does run down and it is one of those bang-bang situations occurs a lot in the NFL, because at the end of the day, 40 seconds isn't a long time. You got to get the play in, you got to get everyone set up at the line, you got to, make your reads, make your calls to the line, make your adjustments, maybe make an audible, see how the defense adjusts to whatever adjustments you've just called. There is a lot going on at the line of scrimmage during a football game, and sometimes you got to use up that 40 seconds. Actually, oftentimes. There's other times where, there's chewing clock situations where you're intentionally letting it run down and you're trying to time it. So, I don't know how often this is going to be used, and I don't know how they're going to enforce it. If they enforce it where they give you about a 1 second-ish buffer, if it's egregious, they'd be like, delay a game, but if it's close, they'll be like, we'll let it slide. I think that's how they should enforce it, because that's about how they enforce it on the field. But if they start to enforce this where they go to replay review and they see the ball has not been snapped the exact millisecond the clock has struck 0, and they start flagging that for delay of game, that is where I think you're going to start to see some controversy. So I don't dislike this rule, because there are definitely some plays where a full 2 seconds went by before the ball was snapped after it hit 0, but I'm concerned a little bit about how they're going to enforce this, and if they enforce it at that exact moment, or if they allow for that little bit, half second, maybe full second of buffer time. That can lead to some potential controversy I'm worried about. T-Bone, I want to get your thoughts on this.
This would certainly lead to some controversy, absolutely.
Probably regarding the Lions, because the Lions can't get any luck with the refs.
Really, though, my thing is, if you can really, because obviously it's it's going to be how is it implemented, of course, and how is it specifics, specifically what's going to happen. If you can guarantee, like down to the like minute, just the tiniest margin of error, and just seeing, really looking and hyper fixated and focused, then I'm for it, because if you can get to the specifics, the absolute milliseconds, like you were saying, Vegas, then that's good. It's very good. Obviously, Bryce Young, Packers game last year, the ball was snapped and time was expired when he went to spike it. Time was expired. That's that is not, you can see it expired. But the thing is, you saw it expired when people slowed it down themselves. So there was some bit of controversy when the game ended. If the refs can get so specifically detailed that there will be no hint of controversy, then that's good. That's good. It's going to be situational. And I really do want that. For those really, final second, plays, I think this is going to be very important.
Well, you talk about, getting it exactly right, but again, my worry is do they enforce it differently in replay than on the field? And, how ticky-tacky are we going to get about it? And I think a really good example of this, and hockey fans will really understand this frustration, is replay reviews for offsides in hockey. Now, the replay review was initially implemented because the referees screwed up on a really obvious offsides play where a guy was, way inside the attacking zone, had a puck knocked up to him, he took it and scored, and he was so blatantly offside that a blind mice could have seen it. And the referees somehow missed it. Because for whatever reason, the requirements for being a referee is to have no vision, to be legally blind. They're out there on the ice with canes. And this was so egregious that people were like, we want offsides replay review. We want offsides replay review. But the byproduct of this has been is that we now see offsides replay reviews where they're literally zooming in along the line and did one atom of his skate hang over the line? Is one atom of the puck still on the line when he leaves the line? They get so ticky-tacky down to, not even inches, centimeters, millimeters with some of these calls. And it takes them 10 minutes to review. And obviously it's not going to take them that long to review this. But that's not the point. The point is that they get so ticky-tacky that it defeats the spirit of the rule by trying to enforce the letter too hard. And now there are a lot of hockey fans who wish that offsides replay review just doesn't exist anymore because of some of the things that it's caused. And a good example, I think, also in hockey is icing. If icing was enforced to the letter of the law, icing would be called 10 times more often than it is, because it technically crosses 2 red lines, but the amount of times where they'll be just behind the second red line and then they'll dump it in and that doesn't get called. That's an inconsistency, and that's how offsides used to be called. It used to be a judgment call, and the review really was only to address that one egregious case that happened, but it ended up getting dominated by these really, really minute millimeter ticky-tacky calls, and I'm really worried that that kind of stuff can happen here, especially if on the field they enforce it differently, because at the end of the day, it's like I said before, the referee cannot be able to tell the exact moment that ball is snapped versus when the clock hits 0. I just don't think it's possible. So I think in order for this rule to be successful, they have to implement an allowable amount of buffer time, whether it's half a second to a second, something along those lines. Enforcing this very ticky-tacky, I think, is against the spirit of the rule, and I think it would lead to problems with people. You got any rebuttal?
I don't disagree on some bit, but it's to the point of where we kind of need to pick. We're kind of in the middle of the road here. We need to pick a side, as it is now.
I really don't think so.
I don't like how it is now. Are you kidding me? But you
can't.
As it is now.
This is a replay review. You can't replay review on every single play. Again, I think if they put in an allowable amount of buffer time in the replay review, that is fair. Because again, there are times where the ball is 2, maybe even 3 seconds. Like, I ain't gonna lie, Bailey Zappi's first touchdown should have been called back for a delay of game. There was a full 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds before the ball was snapped, the clock hit 0. But I think half a second to a second of buffer time should be allowable, because that's what the referees on the field are capable of doing. And again, it's not about the letter of the rule, it's about the spirit of the rule. If we're going to enforce this, I think it needs to be enforced consistently, and that consistency has to cooperate with what the referees are capable of seeing on the field. So I think that buffer time is crucial to how this is called. I just do. I see so many issues with trying to... was his hand moving? Had his hand moved a millimeter by the time the clock hit 0? That buffer time.
No, listen.
I
get the fear, and maybe even a little bit of buffer time is good, but I get the fear. I don't see a problem with getting more accurate. I don't. I really don't.
They can't call it accurately on the field. Long term, maybe. If long term the entire system changes where you're able to implement all of this technology to make sure it's correct, then yes, I would agree with you. But that's not the current situation in the NFL. It shouldn't be ruled with what we hope it would be. It should be ruled with what we know the referees are capable of for the sake of consistency. Because the biggest complaint throughout the NFL with officiating is 100% consistency. Holding isn't called consistently. Roughing the passer isn't called consistently. Pass interference isn't called consistently. Hell, catching the ball isn't even called consistently. If we enforce it like that, you're going to create an entirely new inconsistency that just doesn't need to exist. Until the technology to make it so on every single play without losing any time is there, you have to allow for a little bit of a buffer in the replay review. That's just the case. You're talking about a utopian scenario, and with technology, we might hit that 10 years in the future. That's not where we're at right now. The technology is still evolving, it still needs time. And at the end of the day, these reviews take away from game time. They make games longer. No one likes it when that happens. Obviously, you want to get stuff right. But this should only be used in the most egregious cases where they wait a second, 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds to snap the ball. Give them half a second of buffer time, which is about what happens on the field. And I think that is what should be considered fair. That's just where I'm at. The referee's eyes are not that fast. They got to look from the clock to the quarterback to the center. that's going to be your half a second of buffer time. If the ball isn't snapped at that point, they can call it a late game. If they don't know or they missed something they can replay it. Is it half a second of that buffer time gone? Boom, that's a penalty. You can't call it on the dot because the referees on the field can't call it on the dot. You create inconsistency. Inconsistency is bad. We all hate it. That's my point. I understand your point, but we're not at the point where we can enforce that consistently on the field and in replay review. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do. I mean, I still hold my opinions, but I won't disagree the fact that we need to play with the game of football and technology evolving with that. Obviously, we need to, implement it to what we can handle. We can't bite off more than, we need. We can't bite off more than we need to chew. So.
Yeah, didn't expect to go on a tangent with that one, but let's move on to our next rule. The next rule is the new NFL kickoff. We discussed this proposal in our previous video. We basically explained what it was, and I think there was one or two slight changes. I think if the ball lands in the landing zone and goes out the end zone, it's a touchback at either the 20 or the 25. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was the 20. But in effect, if you want to understand the new NFL kickoff rule, please go ahead, check out our last video. We talk about it in depth, and we also propose our own idea for the NFL kickoff that we think would save the kickoff, keep the spirit of the kickoff, and address the issues that the NFL is concerned about. But the new NFL kickoff rule has been implemented, and no thank you. No. We don't like it. No, just no. This isn't a kickoff. This is a drill. Okay? This is a drill that children do, or this is a drill that you do in practice to save your legs. Like, what are we doing here? What? I don't even know, dude. T-Bone, let's get your thoughts here.
Honestly, I have not heard it like this put before, but I think you put it best. It's a drill. That's literally what it is. This is a drill meant to conserve legs and for children to do this. This is a drill. This is not a kickoff. This does not feel like a kickoff. So it just feels disrespectful. What?
You really haven't heard this described as a drill? I've seen numerous former players describe this as a drill. I've seen Pat McAfee, Matt Chat. I mean, fair, but there's also like other YouTube stuff and media consumption.
Oh, listen here. I'm on Instagram. Instagram is my Twitter. I have not seen anyone call this a. Well,
that's because Instagram doesn't have anything. Doesn't have like the big players. It's for the clickbaity content.
Beg to differ. Des Bryant is very active on Twitter.
Okay, Des Bryant, not everyone else.
And Instagram. Instagram.
Twitter is where you're going to find all the best stuff for this. That's just going to be the case. People don't. Twitter is a much more official businessy type thing. So
Twitter is actually where I got the next rule. Yeah. Twitter is where I found people really yelling at the next rule. But I mean, back to this. Really, this doesn't feel like a kickoff. It's not. I really, I'm very much more warm to the idea of what we were able to scheme up with. So yeah, but. Yeah. Just no. As Vegas said, no. N-O. Nada.
Yeah. And if you want to see our rule proposal and also understand exactly the rules for this kickoff, go ahead and check out our previous video. We go in depth into all of that. And the last rule change. This is the big one. This is, of course, this kickoff is the talk of the town. One of the two big talks of the town, one of the two big elephants in the room. The other one, y'all know what's coming. The banishment of the hip drop tackle. The NFL has chosen to ban what they called, quote, a potentially dangerous tackling technique, which they call the hip drop tackle. Of course, the players and coaches are sitting here like, what the hell is a hip drop tackle? And basically, the wording of it is essentially a player can no longer grab a runner with both hands or wrap the runner with both arms and unweight himself by swiveling and dropping his hips or lower body, landing and trapping the runner's legs at or below the knee. If caught performing this type of tackle, it'll be a 15-yard penalty. So, what the NFL has just done is banned tackling! Especially also, you look at the video examples that the NFL included with this, some of these are just normal football tackles. I don't know what a hip drop tackle is. A lot of players don't know what a hip drop tackle is. A lot of coaches don't know. Obviously, they're going to have to figure out how the NFL is going to enforce this, and I know for a fact that there are going to be several controversies this year where a normal tackle happens and this play gets called. I mean, normal plays either get called for stuff or retroactively fined all the time. Breece Hall got fined for putting his head down so that his knees didn't get blown out for the second year in a row. Like, the NFL, they don't understand the game of football. You'd think the league that's the highest pro football league in the world would understand their own sport. But no, they don't. There are going to be normal tackles that get called for crap. And it's not like it isn't already impossible to be a defender. Like, if you're, like, for instance, roughing the passer. If you don't, grab the quarterback, gently lay his head back on a pillow, cover him up with a nice soft fuzzy blanket, read him a bedtime story, wish him good night. Then you're called for roughing the passer. You don't give him his little teddy bear. You're called for roughing the passer. It's already hard enough to be a defender in this league. Also, especially with the complete lack of offensive holding penalties that get called. Like, I've seen people get away with murder so many times in the offensive line. Offensive holding is just not consistent. And the other thing that really annoys me is when an offensive lineman isn't holding a guy and then gets called for it. Meanwhile, these guys are murdering people and getting away with it. And that goes back to the consistency issue we were talking about a moment ago. You know, and this won't be called consistently, because I don't think the refs understand what a hip drop tackle is. I don't think anyone understands what it is, and not even the people who came up with this rule. Really and truly. It's a sad reality of where we're at. I mean, in the next 5 years, we're going to be pulling flags off of wastes. That's just going to be the way it is. You know, we're probably actually going to, like, tape pillows to the back of helmets, just so that when you fall back, you're able to land on a pillow and, you know, be able to fall asleep nice and cozy. It's just the way it is. Defense can't catch a break. Of course, they've schemed their way into success looking just at this last year. But they have the whole world fighting against them with all of these rules, with all of this crap. T-Bone, I want to get your thoughts on this.
This might actually be the worst one of the list, in my opinion. This is the other big elephant, as you were saying. And this is where I actually saw some people on Twitter, where the very few times I go and peruse, J.J. Watt was not pleased, among other defenders. And this just kills me, man. This just kills me. You know it's a problem. You know defense is having a problem when Tom Brady, during the season, says it last season. Because he says it. He said some stuff about sort of the modernization of the game. And I know it was some fun to poke at where he's like, you know, with these modern rules, if you're like, well, modern rules, Tom, you played with them. But I mean, it's serious. Take it from the greatest of all time and one of the kings of longevity. He's seen the most change, one of the most changes in the NFL. I mean, obviously, you know, barring the guy, you know, George Blanda, from leather helmets to, you know, to hard plastic and all that. But Tom Brady has seen the evolution of the game of football, and I really don't like it. You know, obviously player safety is very important. You know, it's getting to the point of you can't play defense anymore. This is a hard-hitting game, and you can't do anything anymore, and that's bad. That's bad. I mean, really, the big thing that people should be worried about is the turf. The turf. But no owner's going to listen to them. No owner's going to listen to them. They do this instead. And I don't want to be told that it's raining when in fact you're peeing on me. This is not for player safety. God, it's so annoying. So it's going to get to the point where, can't hit too high. Now you can't hit too low. Can't hit too hard in the middle. What can you do? So God, it just bugs me. This one really gets my goat, but what can you do? What can you do? Hopefully they ideally there's enough backlash at some point to change, but who knows?
God, let's hope, but you know full well that the NFL is so wonderful at listening to feedback. That's totally their specialty. And it's like you said, why worry about things that aren't actually a player safety concern and addressing them in the name of player safety that they don't actually cost you any money, when actual player safety issues like artificial turf will cost you millions and millions of dollars. There's and that is the big problem is the actual solutions to some of these problems, things that will actually help player safety, cost more money than these rules. A rule like this is essentially a virtue signal in the form of a football rule. You want meaningful change? Make grass mandatory. They put grass in Jerry World for a soccer game. They're putting grass in all these NFL stadiums for the World Cup. Because soccer, which is the best sport by the way, is actually smart enough to say, hey, play on grass. But that actually costs money, time, and effort. And we don't want to actually have to put that in. We just want to do simple rule changes like this and say we care about player safety while expanding the schedule to make you have to play more games in an already long and grueling season. 17 games. But we care about player safety, you see, because we banned the tackle. You banned tackling. Everyone wants players to be safe. We don't want anybody to get hurt. But every single player who plays the game of football understands the risk. They sign up for that risk. Risk is inevitable. You cannot remove risk from life. You risk your life every single day when you get in your car and drive to work. You are risking your life. There are risks to everything you do in life. There are risks to every decision you make in life. You can't get rid of that. And the NFL is no different. There's doing things to help player safety, and then there's destroying the game in the name of player safety. Will eventually turning to flag football reduce injuries? Yes. But it also destroys the game of football. And you're seeing, like, the kickoff. They made the kickoff rule. Could it potentially change injuries? Possibly. I don't know. I'm not very familiar with that data, and I myself have not personally noticed a discrepancy of injuries on kickoffs. But by changing that rule so drastically, you change the game itself and you make it a little bit less of the game of football. And that's the case here. That's what these rule changes do. They don't solve the problem, or they overcompensate and change the game to be no longer the game in an attempt to solve the problem or pretend to care. I want to keep both the game and make players safe. You have to find that happy medium, but at the end of the day, you will always be at risk for an injury, and every single player who is on an NFL roster or who plays a game of football at basically any level, except for like Pee Wee because kids don't understand anything, understands that they are risking their body. They're risking an injury. That is just the reality of the situation. T-Bone, any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up?
No, sir.
Alrighty then, please be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. We would love to hear what you all have to say. And that is going to do it for us today. Thank you all so very much for watching. Please be sure to hit the like button. Please be sure to subscribe. And we will see you all in the next video.